he sent this video to like the survivors of gun violence, this group. What are they called? The Newtown Action Alliance. So it's a grassroots movement formed after the Hook of Sand. I don't know. That's probably going to get us, if we say it properly, it's probably going to be like, this is Alex Jones speaking. I can't even say the words anymore. They've censored all the words online. They're detecting you through probes. So he records this video. Everybody says he's reading it off a script. It's just full of errors, and I did some research on it. So let's take a look and see what he says.
Dang, he looks old, bro.
He's
Sorry,
probably
no.
like 70.
Okay, well then, makes it better. Continue.
Everyone, I'm Mark Hamill.
I'm
sorry
Mark
I can't be
Hamill.
with you in person to share this message, but I wanted to express my deepest condolences for your losses due to the tragedy of gun violence in America. We are the greatest country in the world, but we also have the greatest gun problem in the world. No other nation comes close. Nearly 50,000 Americans die from gun violence every year.
So I'm going to stop him right there because that's incredibly misleading. And it's
Yeah.
there's like people will see that and they'll be like, that's right. And then even him, somebody probably sent him that stat and he's like, that's right. That sounds right. I mean, I can't be wrong about that. But what the 50,000, and this is going to be from the CDC, which is like, God to some left wing people. You got to do the CDC. But the CDC, I have a friend like that who's in the medical industry. He's like, but the CDC said, therefore, conversation over. So that includes, where is it? All firearm deaths, 48,830. So roughly 50,000. But what that includes is suicides. And suicides make up more than half of it, which is wild. It's a wild stat if you didn't know. But firearm suicides, 26,328 out of roughly 48,000. So we go back to this, and it's 54%. I should blow this up. 54% of all firearm deaths in the United States are from suicides. So immediately, you knock that number more in half, and like 22,500 doesn't sound nearly as bad as 50,000, which you can round up to. And the reason they do that is because they can say then it's a much higher number, and it's it ranks above a bunch of other countries. But as I open these other links here, which showcase actually where the United States is, and there's a lot of YouTubers who go and talk about this, and good on them for getting this research. Even when you go to left-wing sources, as you can see, they have a sign that says Stop Gun Violence. They show that America is actually ranked way lower. And they do this thing here, Gabe, where they won't even, it's very hard to find just the straight up list of homicides per country. So what this one even does is says among high income countries. Like, I thought no societies and no cultures were better than another, but now we're just including only high income ones.
Yeah.
So they're 7th on that list, I believe it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7th out of 65. And then we go to the Southwest Journal, who does a whole thing about it, and they're not even on the list for deaths, firearm deaths for 100,000 people, and they're like ranked 30th on one list, 20 something else on another list, and Mark Hamill's just out here just being like, that's it, you guys, 50,000, we have a horrible problem, and everybody freak out.
What's interesting to me is the CDC had showed the suicide deaths, right? But I'd be very interested to see in the 22,000 that are homicides, or homicides, right? Because it just says that those are the suicide ones, right? But the other gun deaths, right? I'm very interested to see on what is self-defense, what after that is from illegal aliens, and what is also like, just like misfires, right? Like people like accidentally, like not going out and like purposely having intent to kill other people, because I'm sure those are included in that statistic, right? And from the conservative standpoint, if you take like just the average conservative American and the average American, the numbers would probably be even lower than that.
So it's in there. I know it's in there because I looked it up for other stats. It'll take a while to find, but yeah, they're combining all the reasons for firearm death. And you're right, it could be police firefight, or something like that, or what gang warfare, who knows. But I want to show more of what Mark Hamill says, because that sort of comes up in the statistics of, he says like, it's an epidemic for children, it's the number one cause of death for children. I have no idea where he's getting that from, but it's not true.
Guns have become the number one killer of children and teens. We need to end this public health crisis now. Ban assault weapons now. Enact universal background checks now. Pass red flag laws now. It gives me great hope that you're there on Capitol Hill trying to create change, and I thank each and every one of you for being there to honor your loved ones by taking action to protect the lives of all Americans. I know this work isn't easy, but you're on the right side of history.
It's really reading there. I didn't
Dude,
realize
yeah, I was about to say, for an actor, all right, you can really tell he's reading off a script, and I really wonder how much he was paid for that, because the amount of political terms that are in there, right? I understand that he's like calling for law to be changed, but the average person does not know all those political terms, right? They don't even know what red flag laws mean. So the fact that he's like saying all these political terms, it literally seems like he was given a script, said, here, DNC is paying you this much, kind of like Harry Sisson. I don't know if you're familiar with Harry Sisson, but literally just like reading off this script. They're like, oh, we'll give you, 50 grand for this, one per death.
I was going to say the same thing. I want $1 per death. So he says the children stuff, and that's the one I looked into more, because the CDC actually has it all. I won't open them all for you. I'll open like one, but ages 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, and 15 to 19, gun violence or even general assault is not the one that is listed as the number one reason. It's all under accidents. So then I figured, and this is something I know that left-wing people do, because I've been around the block, literally, interviewing people for years, and specifically on guns. My first video I ever did for Rebel News was, like, assault rifle ban stuff, and that's when somebody... I asked somebody what a 40 caliber means, and they said it means it can go 40 meters. The bullet can travel 40 meters. And so from that point, like, you start to realize everybody doesn't know what they're talking about on this subject. So I said, what would they say to that? And they would probably say, well, accidents probably includes firearms too. So I looked up what accidents were, and then that only includes, transportation accidents, external causes of accidental injury, and secondary causes sometimes for disease. So none of what he's saying is actually true if we're going by the CDC.
Yeah.
Lord King CDC. And you're exactly right. It sounds like he was given a list by a political action committee. I mean, that Newtown committee is probably just one of those organizations that says these are the list of laws we want changed. And a lot of people don't know why people don't want red flag laws, for example. And quickly, you give me your opinion on that. I would think that it would just be because somebody doesn't like you who has political power. All of a sudden they say that person's too dangerous. Put them on a red. It wouldn't be too hard to get them on a red flag list.
Oh yeah, not at all.
That person thinks Trump was innocent, or they think the election was fake or something. That person must be crazy. They should have a red flag. That's exactly where that's going. And in terms of the background checks, I think people's fear of that is, generating a list of people with guns. I don't know. Have you heard any other arguments?
Yeah, I'm like, I want to think that Americans, for the most part, want to be like very private, right? So having someone put their name on like a list to restrict them from going to buy a gun is preposterous, right? It's crazy to think that would be something that could happen. But I remember I was working in election. I worked for Jeff Younger. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. But basically, like, that would be something where his ex-wife, who is transitioning his 4-year-old son to a girl, would probably say he's a danger, right? Would say he doesn't affirm my son's identity. He shouldn't be able to own a gun. And I think at this moment, there are like restrictions on him specifically on doing that. But any other parent who wants to protect their children, right? Any other parent who is overprotective of their children. I use overprotective as a term to mean well enough protected, right? Because if you're not an overprotective parent, you're a pussy, basically. I'm sure you'll bleep that out, but like I think that you're spineless, right? I think that you should be overprotective of your children. You should be making sure that you have every measure possible to make sure your children are safe if you are a parent. And owning a firearm is definitely one of those. You need to own a firearm. And if other people are out there saying, oh, well, so-and-so is a conservative, so-and-so does this, so-and-so goes to church, which is like a right-wing radical group now, right? Christians, they shouldn't own a firearm. I think that that's so stupid. I think it's quite frankly, it's probably one of the gayest things I've ever heard.
Here's one of the stats I pulled. I think this was the 5 to 9 one, though they don't even have it on this one.
I mean, the truth is that like the highest death of children in America is abortion. And if you ask any person between those ages that were listed there, you ask them, hey, have you had any friends die like in your lifetime? They'd probably say yeah. And ask them like what those deaths were from. Most of the time it's going to be suicide and like drugs, right? Which also plays into suicide because, you know, they most likely took the drugs themselves. But for the most part, it would be suicide, at least that I can think of.
Did they take this stuff off? It wasn't like this. Like, it listed each death here, each cause of death. Like, because you can see it shows the number of deaths for each one, mortality, leading causes of death. Maybe I was clicking on the wrong one. My bad, CDC. I didn't accuse you of doing anything.
Yeah.
See, there it is. So this is for one age group: congenital malformations, assault, homicide. So, like, gun deaths aren't even on the charts for the younger ages. Like, there aren't children, like, of course it exists, but there aren't just, like, this massive amount of children dying from gunshots. And not even from gunshot suicides. Like, it's on the list for some of the children, but not until you get to the late teen years. I don't think death by firearm is even on there. Assault, homicide, like, they don't say... But even if you like combined some of these, it wouldn't equal the number one.
Like I see COVID-19 on there as right. One of them. And I know that's a big no-no to talk about. But if I were to assume, it would probably be not COVID-19, but the so-called amazing amenity or prescription for COVID-19 that did that.
And back to your thing about like having a gun. I had a comment on a video recently that was like, why would I want to be in a place where I need a gun? And it's just so strange these days. I hear a lot of men online. I was complaining about this on Anomalies podcast, complaining about guys online saying things are too mean. And this is in the same vein. Why would you want a gun? Like that's dangerous. That's stupid. We don't need guns here. Yeah. It's like, why? Number one, why do you want the government to be able to tell you what you can own? And like, you're just putting yourself in a situation where instead of owning the thing, then you want to call a guy who has the same thing because you trust him to do the right thing better than yourself. That's just like illogical to me.
Yeah,
it's not plumbing. It's not an electrical system. It's like it takes you 10 seconds to be taught how to use a gun, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
and just don't point at anything you don't want to get hurt. And no, I don't want one. Let me just call a guy who's better than me to be here in about 15 to 30 minutes. And I've also heard the argument of, well, just let them rob you if you have house insurance. It's like, what?
Dude, your insurance rates go through the roof after that kind of stuff. I'm assuming you guys are probably already subbed, but if you guys are a lower tier,
he's figuring out in real time.
No, listen. If you guys are a lower tier, you guys got to subscribe to the higher tier, the highest tier of the patronage for Andrew Says, and also share the video with your friends. All right, share all his other content with your friends because I know that they will like it too.